This is Millennial Media. On Millennial Media, we talk to local St. Charles County High School students and some of their professors about all of the cool things they're working on in the media field. Hello, welcome to Millennial Media. I'm your host, Romero Starks, and to start today's show, we're going to interview Kyle Williams and his teacher, Scott Wolz. Guys, how are you today?
Doing well.
Good. Good. So, Kyle, you are a student there at Fort Zumwalt North. I heard before the show that you've had quite a few classes with Scott, and I've also heard that Scott's the jack of all trades. So, what things do you teach?
Well, in our school, we have the media classes that fall underneath the industrial technology umbrella, but we also do woods and metals, and I teach drafting as well. Gotcha. A little bit of architecture, so there's a lot that fall in there.
So, Kyle, what courses have you taken then with Scott?
I've taken Media Tech 1, 2, and then Practicum as of now, so.
Yeah. So you've had him for quite a few years then, huh?
Yeah, just high school, yeah.
So, Scott, what is that balance like, having the media-related courses on top of all of the other things? How do you find that balance to take time?
You know, to be honest, the media is sort of where I'm most comfortable. Long before I started teaching, I was a photographer in the Navy, way back when they used film, the stuff called film. And so that's sort of where I cut my teeth. And later on, when I moved into the digital cameras, and I was discharged, I started making wedding albums and that sort of stuff. I used Photoshop then, so that's where I'm more comfortable. So when I get to those media classes, that's sort of like my little perk of the day. I really enjoy the woods and the metals, and I do, but those take a little bit more brain power on my part, whereas I'm a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more comfortable in the media area.
Gotcha. So, Kyle, at what point did you start using Photoshop? Was that once you started taking classes with Scott, or did you have some background experience?
Yeah, as soon as I took Media Tech 1, I really just started loving it and wanted to learn more about it and get some more skills. Yeah.
So, you said that's Media Tech 1.
Yeah.
And you've now taken 2, and you're in a Practicum class.
Yes.
So where do you think, how big would you say the growth has been since then, now that you're a little more seasoned and comfortable with Photoshop?
It's been huge. If I cringe looking at my old projects and stuff. It's so sad, but.
I came this close to bringing in a couple of the first ones.
Oh no, it was.
I didn't want
to
embarrass you too bad.
I would love to see them because we've got some of the more recent things. I would have liked to have seen a compare and contrast.
It's a pretty big difference, but the old projects are still hard to look at for me.
Right. So aside from Photoshop work, what other things do you do?
I do a lot of video stuff as well. I make short films with friends and edit as well. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. So in all these media classes, Scott, do you just tackle a little bit of everything? Let's do some Photoshop, some video work. What's the spectrum here?
Well, in our high school program, we sort of just focus on Photoshop. We'll start there. We'll do we do still touch a little bit on Flash, or Animate as they call it now, and then we'll do some Premiere work. So we'll do some video filming, some editing. Just in our intro classes, it's mostly basic camera skills, headroom and look room, that kind of stuff. As they go into the Media 2 classes, the applied media, they'll start working more. They'll stick sort of with the Photoshop and the Premiere, but they'll get a little bit more in depth with it. And when they get to Kyle's level, they're just able to do essentially whatever they want. They take on bigger projects because we don't have a set, on this day we're going to do this, on this day we're going to do that. They get a chance to explore it a little bit more and really start tackling those bigger projects that you can't really do in a couple of days, in the intro classes.
Right. So, Kyle, like I mentioned, we do have a couple of the things you've worked on. So, for example, the typography you did with the Pennywise picture.
Yeah.
How long does something like that take?
That took about 3 days to finish up, but probably about 2 hours each day working. Yeah. It's kind of freaky, but
I was looking over it before the show, and I was like, man, that's intense. And I know nothing about Photoshop. I've tried before to mess with it, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here, so I just got closer.
For sure.
So how does typography work as far as layering the text with the picture and having it fit the outline of the picture? How does that work?
So you grab your original image, which was Pennywise the clown,
right.
and I sort of did like a displacement map is what it's called, and it like picks up on like the different value changes and kind of like mats over that. And then I just add individual words where it seems necessary, and yeah, just kind of toy with it.
So was that something that was a class project or just something you
Yeah,
just
for
wanted to mess
graphic
around with?
design. Yeah.
So with that project, you just kind of, whatever picture you want to do, mess with some typography? Or was there like a certain type of theme, like everybody has to do something along these lines?
So you probably took that one in Coach Bacon's class.
Yeah.
That was, but yeah, we do something similar, and it's basically, you can, the cool thing about things like Photoshop is you can give an assignment, but you can still have students bring their individuality to it.
Right.
So I can say, grab a picture and we're going to do some light and dark values or something like that. We're going to make a mat or whatever the case might be. But they get to go out and pick the image. They get to go out, they'll bring them in from home. So you really get to learn a lot more about the student than if I just said, here, use this and do that with it. And so as a teacher, it's a little bit more rewarding and satisfying just to get to know them a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm sure that's nice.
We actually had a conversation about like Stephen King stuff right before I made that, and I was like, I'm just gonna make this. So yeah, it was chill.
That's actually a really good movie, so I was impressed. Yeah. Just the artwork alone, like I said, Photoshop is fascinating to me because I know nothing about it. I've seen people make really cool things, but I haven't passed that course yet. I need to read up on it. So you also do some digital oil paint, it looks like?
Yeah, like digital manipulation with original photos, kind of add some colors and like oil paint effects. So.
Right. So is that what you had going on there with the concert pictures that you took?
Yeah, for both of them.
Right.
The first one and then like the greenish hue, and then there's one with a bluish hue that I'll show later on. But
so how do these work as far as getting that effect? Because looking at it now, it almost doesn't even look like a regular photograph. It looks totally like fully painted.
Yeah,
so how do you get it to that point?
Well, using like the gradient map tool, it kind of like helps like bump up the contrast, and you'd like adjust some settings to have that like oil painty effect. But also there's this tool called the crap, I can't think of what it's called.
Are you talking about the oil filters?
No, it's the blur tool.
Oh,
the blur tool
Okay,
and smudge tool.
Gotcha.
Smudge tool, that's it.
So just those little simple tools can change an ordinary picture into something like this.
Yeah, it adds it more like, has like a flowy effect.
So with the Photoshop courses, is there just like kind of on a weekly basis, oh, well, today we're going to work on doing these type of things, like what we're seeing here with the oil paint style, and then today we're going to work on typography, or do you kind of just slowly go through the principles of Photoshop and then from there on kind of make some things in your own time?
Like Media Tech helped me learn like just the fundamentals of like how to access everything and what it does, but then they get to learn how to like use it in fun ways like that.
Right. Yeah, it's just starting off with those fundamental skills, because some people have used this before, you know, and especially in the high school. When I was down at the middle school, I sort of had a corner on the market. Not too many people were using it before they got to me, but some of the kids get exposed to it in middle school before they get there. Some of them will take one of the fine arts programs or something like that, and they'll be exposed to it there, and some of them have never seen it before. So those intro classes, you just sort of have to start at the beginning and just sort of work up to where everybody is. And then in the second one, you get to do a little bit longer projects because they know the fundamentals, and they're able to work through it a little bit more, find the answers on their own if they need to. Right.
So you mentioned that in middle school it was a little easier because not many people had that experience. So how long have you been helping students with Photoshop and the other media-related softwares?
This is my 5th year. I spent 2.5 years down. I started in, for those teachers out there, I started in the middle of the semester. That's baptism by fire right there. But I started at the middle school. I was there for 2.5 years, and this is my 3rd year at North High.
Gotcha. So you've been doing it just long enough now that...
Just long enough to really sort of be hitting that stride, find out what works, find out what doesn't, what projects out of rewriting tutorials be like, nope, that one didn't work, or they don't know what this word means, so, or this just sounds silly when you say it out loud, so go back and rewrite it. But yeah, it's really just, finding that stride with it, when finding them where they are, meeting them where they are, and going on from there.
Gotcha. So, Kyle, how would you say that's helped you being able to have Scott as a teacher for various classes and, work your way from, oh, he's just showing me how to use Photoshop, I've never used it before, to now being able to make the type of stuff you do? How much has he influenced that and really been a help to you?
A lot, because learning the fundamentals is always necessary before you move into actually applying that to making artwork or just anything. You want to learn, have those building blocks, and just to help with that. So
right. So I imagine some of your students, like Corbin, who we're going to talk to in the following segment, you've had them for a long enough time that, they've been under your wing for so long. It's probably nice being able to see how far they've come.
It is, and it's with both of them. It's they're at that point now where it's sort of like watching your kids grow up.
Right.
But it is sort of really neat to watch them, just sort of take off and just go in this direction that you never even, you never even thought of yourself. That's the beauty about, media in general. There's just so many directions to go and so many things to do. And you see them, dig in and really start doing something. And it's a very satisfying thing, to watch them grow like that.
Right. So we've only got a couple of more minutes, but I'd like to know from you, Kyle, what's next for you? You're a senior, so what career options are you looking forward to possibly pursuing?
Definitely graphic design work. I'm going to SCA for 2 years because I have the A+ tutoring, and I haven't really decided on the next college after that, but definitely graphic design is what I'd say.
Gotcha. So with graphic design, I imagine there's so many things you can do with that.
It's very broad, so I'm still trying to pinpoint what exactly I want to do.
I got you. Well, it's nice to be open about your options because, there's so many degrees in the media field that I don't think you can really box yourself into saying, well, I want to just do this, because you never know what your experience or skill set might be, suitable for. So I wish you the best of luck for sure at SCA. I know I have a lot of friends that have gone through graphic design programs, and the stuff you guys can do is beyond me. As you can tell, I'm a TV and media guy, so this is the stuff that I'm familiar with. So best of luck to you. How do you guide those students with having so many media-related courses? How do you kind of help them find their spot, their groove?
It's when they start turning work in. First of all, it's sometimes pretty easy to pinpoint. Sometimes they'll just they'll be done with the project early, especially in the intro classes, and they'll start playing around with other things, and you can see, oh well, if you're interested in that, we can sort of drive things in that direction and get a little bit more hands-on in that area. And it's I don't want to say it's self-directed, at least not at the intro courses, but they certainly have a lot of input, and so it's pretty easy to see where they'd like to go.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. And Scott, you can stay put, because when we come back, we're going to sit with Corbin Caguin, and he does a lot of music-related things over at Fort Zumwalt. So him and Scott are going to tell us all about it when we come back.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream, that I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly, just to come back in a new disguise and be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund breeding.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
Welcome back to Millennial Media. I'm your host, Romero Starks, and joining us now is Corbin Caguin, and along with Scott Wolz. So, Corbin,
hello.
Tell me about yourself, man.
So, I go to Fort Zumwalt North. I'm a senior there, and I've been in the media program since 7th grade, and he's been with me the whole time. So, I like to produce music, and I like to make all kinds of cool sounds and stuff.
Gotcha. So, Scott, I imagine you're not really into the sound engineering avenue so much as the other things.
Like I say, I worked at a radio station a long time ago. I do like music, but I'm not really a music producer. I can edit it all day long, but producing it, creating it, I have a guitar, and you can't call even what I do on it playing it. So one day he comes to me and he's like, he's in the Practicum program, and he's like, I would like you to install this software called FL Studio, and I trust him. So I asked him, is there a virus? And he's like, no. And I'm like, promise? And he's like, yeah. So we put it on there, and it has been amazing what he does with it. It's just, it's mind-blowing.
So what classes have you taken with Scott? Since obviously when you start drifting a little more towards your musical interests, that's not necessarily his field of expertise. Yeah. So what classes have you taken with him?
Well, so I started off by taking in middle school, just the very basic media, and it covers things like Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff. So I've always been kind of interested in that, and that's why I continued to stick with the media program. And then coming into high school, I dabbled in drafting and Wolz, and just because he was the teacher, so I knew I would have fun with the class. So, and then come junior year, I had kind of gotten a little bit into the music production software. So, and at that point it was just kind of a hobby, but we were working on a video project where we were making a commercial, and I'd asked him to install the software so I could make my own song for it. Nice. And so he was like, yeah, I gave it a go. And then I think that's when he kind of saw my potential with it. So he let me work on more projects related to the production software. So, and then now this year I'm taking the Practicum class, and I'm just focusing on the music.
Gotcha. So, Scott, can you explain to us what exactly is the Practicum class? What are the focuses in that class?
Well, the focus is what the student wishes the focus to be. So you can, when they come in, they sort of pick a path, and they're not limited. You don't get to pick Premiere and then you're stuck with Premiere. Right. But they do sort of get a chance to dig in more of what they want to do, and as long as they're working and they have projects to do, I can't keep the guy off of it. It's not like he's not working. So while I can't really help him a whole lot with I'd put a C# there if it were me. I can do a lot with he always takes what he's making, he sends it to me, I get to listen to it. And it's just amazing that that's sitting right there. Plus, I will admit it's a little bit selfish on my part. I do get to we do a small, not quite like this setup, but we do a small little Coach Hickey show at the school where we interview our athletic director, and he'll bring in students and athletes and that sort of thing. And there have been a couple times I've gone to Corbin and say, hey, the music's getting a little stale. How about you throw in a bumper or something? We did the Sad Brady. If you remember, if you ever watched the Brady Bunch, they always have that transition between, when something good happens and they have, the theme, but it's all kind of slow. And I was like, I explained to him, I was like, I need a Sad Brady. And he's like, and he gave me one. It was amazing. He's like, the next day, he's like, how's that sound? I'm like, perfect.
Right. So you just become the low-key audio producer for a couple little things.
Whatever he wants, I can pretty much whip it up in a day.
Got you. So is that generally how long it takes you to produce a lot of the things you do, or do some things take much longer than others?
No. So for the smaller bumpers and sound effects that he needs for the show, I can get that done in a day. But for my own personal work, I've had songs and other things that I've produced that have taken up to several months.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So you obviously mentioned you use FL Studios now. What software did you start with?
I started with a program called Studio One, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best for production specifically. It's generally used a lot more for mixing and mastering, and maybe just a little bit of recording. Right. So I started using that. My friend introduced it to me, and I used to go over to his house a lot, and we would just like mess around on it and stuff. And then when I started to when it started becoming more of a hobby for me, I started like researching other production like suites, and I found FL Studio because a lot of people were saying it was so like beginner friendly, and kind of once you scratch the surface level on it, you really see like how deep you can go with it.
Right. So what would you say has been the growth that you've seen since it, like you said, started as kind of something you do at your friend's house and then gradually a hobby, and now you're actually making songs?
Yeah.
So what would you say the growth has been like?
So I guess the growth for me, like at the very beginning, I was still kind of trying to like navigate through the software and figure out like what exactly I could do with it.
Right.
And now I've got to the point where I know how to use everything, and now I can like really let my creativity show, and I can kind of lay down like anything that I want and like know exactly like how I want it to sound.
Right. So we've actually got some of your music here. We want to take a listen to it. So what's the first song you want to introduce?
I'll introduce this Christmas song I made with my friend Olivia, and she had posted on Instagram this song that she wrote, and she was playing the guitar and she was singing, and so I messaged her and I was like, hey, I really like this, let's turn it into a real song. So over the course of a week we worked on it, and she sang and she played the guitar and everything, and then I kind of went back through it and laid everything over. Like I had some sleigh bells and some like really Christmassy sounding stuff, and yeah, it turned out, I'd say, pretty good.
Well, let's take a listen. First of all, I'm impressed, since, like you said, that just started with, you know, a little post, and you're like, man, I want to make that a song. So, does that happen to you often, where you just see something and you're like, hey, man, I could fix that up and make that a real deal thing?
Yeah, a lot of the people that I've worked with is because either me or my friend, who's actually a manager, like finds the person, and they kind of introduce like me to them, or vice versa. And like with this one, it just happened, like I saw it on my Instagram feed and I was like, wow, this has a lot of potential.
Right.
And yeah, she was really easy to work with, and I kind of let her have a lot of say in it. And that's like really important, especially as a producer. Like if you're working with an artist, you kind of have to let them like let you know exactly what they want, and then you can take it from there.
So Scott, you mentioned obviously this isn't necessarily where you reside in the media spectrum, but aside from being the kind of help out and the ear, what else have you been able to help him with?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting the way things worked out, because like I was saying, I've worked at radio stations before, and I can hear what he does, and I can hear what I used to, you know, have to hunt down for a track or for whatever. And it's, you know, I think probably the best thing I could give at this point is encouragement, because there's a definite market and there's a definite potential for what he does, and he's good at it. So, you know, just knowing what I know and knowing that people, you know, I used to have to hunt down people to make mixes to send in to us so that we can play them on, you know, the dance parties on Friday night and that sort of thing.
Right.
It's just sort of weird how it came full circle. So I'm not trying to say that I'm, you know, some sort of big shot music producer guy who's got the golden ear or anything like that.
You heard it here first.
But I mean, I will say that what he does, it sounds good, and I like it. And to quote The Simpsons, I know what I hate, and I don't hate that.
Gotcha. So how do people typically reach you and reach out to you to say, man, Corbin, you got to make me something, like you're really good at this? How does that usually work?
Usually they'll contact me through social media or through like a mutual like friend or something. And a lot of the times I'm open to working with somebody. It just depends. Like sometimes like I'll turn them down just because of like the quality, and not necessarily like their production quality, but like just like how they view like the whole process, like as an artist.
Gotcha. So how can we follow your work?
Right now I'm on SoundCloud at Bino is VSAD, and I'm trying to get my music onto Spotify soon too.
Got you. So first of all, at what point did you say, you know what, this isn't a hobby anymore, I'm gonna start putting out music, and I want, you know, more people to be able to hear this than just my friends or Scott and kind of critique it. I want more people to be able to take this in.
Yeah, well, I mean, just after hearing so much encouragement from him, especially in the class, I kind of realized that maybe I could turn my hobby into a career. So, I mean, SoundCloud is like very popular like this day and age.
Huge.
And like a lot of like artists like have become very famous because of it. So I figured that I just give it a shot, and like so far it's doing very well.
Got you. So as a senior, what's next for you? Where do you plan to go to school, if you plan on going to school?
Yeah, so right now I think I kind of want to keep my options open. I haven't really made any like serious commitments to any kind of school. I think right now I want to figure out like my path in music and like turning it from a hobby into a career.
Got you. So obviously with every plan, there's always a plan B just in case. Being that you have other media experience, if the music things don't work out, what is something else that you'd love to get into?
Well, there's lots of things that aren't necessarily making music that can still be related to music. So like I think it would be very cool to be like a creative director for like an artist or like a group, and kind of like being the say in kind of like their music videos and like their covers and like merch and all that kind of stuff.
Right, got you. Well, I certainly wish you the best of luck, man. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
check out the music. I love just seeing, you know, the guys younger than me now, they're just so ahead of the curve, and you guys are figuring out stuff so much quicker than some of the people my age did, and definitely the people before us. So, Corbin, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
You and Scott, thanks for coming by, guys.
Thank you.
So that is all for today's episode of Millennial Media, and we look forward to seeing you next time.